Welcome back to HouzzTV Live. I'm Rick Spence, and with me today is Kaitlyn Wolfe with Iconic Design Build out of beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, taking some time to share her own home, which she recently remodeled. Really smart design here, reuse some materials, and you're calling this Scandinavian Modern Desert. I love it. So let's start with the big picture here. Give me a feel for this home and what you were intending to do with it.
The bones were really great. It had very high ceilings. It had a lot of windows, but none of those things were really accentuated with the previous finishes and with the wall that was separating the kitchen from the living room. So I kind of felt like we could really turn this space around without going crazy on the budget, without making any huge structural changes. And you're totally unexpected, as soon as you walk in.
So give me a feel for the kitchen and tell me what you did in the kitchen, because it's hard to imagine you were able to reuse anything in that space.
Yeah. So when we tell people that we reuse the existing cabinetry, I think people are really shocked. But when you look at the before and after, you see that the footprint of the kitchen remained the same. The reason we kept the existing cabinets is because they were actually fairly new and they had been replaced by the previous owners. So they were all soft close. They had integrated spice racks, the rollout drawers in the pantry, and all those things, are upgrades on cabinets. I took the opportunity to basically salvage the cabinetry, but we had them painted just to kind of give them a new life, and then obviously replace the hardware, which totally changed the look. But the main change we made there was removing that wall that separated the kitchen from the living room. We were able to reuse those cabinets in another area of the home, and then we even added some cabinetry in the living room. So we didn't lose any storage in that sense, but we were able to have that open concept.
Tell me a little bit more about the color of the cabinets and how many times you had to spray them to make them look like that.
So this color we chose is Dunn Edwards charcoal smudge. We wanted to do something darker just because we did go with a lighter white oak floor, and then we wanted to go with white walls. So we wanted to have some contrast there. And it also kind of pulled out the veining in the countertops that we had picked. Another detail that we ended up deciding to do was the Waterfall countertop edge. Based on kind of the floor plan and how the door is shaped when you first walk in, the first thing you see is the side of the peninsula right there. So the waterfall becomes the feature there.
What's the material of the countertop?
It's quartz. I really like the fine veining versus the very thick, chunky veining in the slab. And it does have a little bit of gray in it. So I really liked that. And then we went with the Blanco undermount sink and anthracite. It's like a matte finish versus doing kind of a standard stainless steel. Updating the cabinet hardware was a rejuvenation pull. So putting that extra money into the pulls, because we went with a size that's basically double what was there before. And then by using the back plate on the hardware, it covered the hole from the previous pulls that were smaller.
And I think that size looks great in there. I love the floating shelves with the lights, because that essentially was wall. Tell me a little bit about your backsplash there and the shelves.
So the backsplash is a porcelain. It's a picket shape. So we went all the way to the ceiling behind the shelves just to give it a very clean finish. You don't really see where it stops and starts, which is highlighted really nicely when those sconces are on. The shelves are actually made out of steel, so they're in just a raw steel finish. And then we added the little lip on the front, so that way we could add the LED tape light underneath. At night, we can just have that as a soft lighting.
Yeah, that's nice. The other benefit now, that's sort of lighting more of the space because that kitchen isn't closed off, right? So you must be getting a lot more light just with the existing lighting.
Yes, so the house was very dark. There were no recessed can lights at all in the living room before. So that totally opened up the space.
Let's go into your living area now. So many great elements. What you did with the shelving, the way you opened it up.
So we ended up removing a window and then relocating the formal dining room. So our living room got twice as large, and then we were able to use 2 usable walls. So we had the TV and the TV stand put on the wall that had the window prior, and then we reused that little niche space for a display area.
Tell me about your furniture and some of your material choices in the space here.
So we chose to float the sofa in the room, again, because we were using 2 functional walls on both sides. And so we chose a very minimal sofa, really great for entertaining when, we can entertain again. The coffee table is a vintage Knoll table. So we wanted to bring that into the new home. And then we had the two leather chairs kind of between, the living and the kitchen, keeping it very minimal so it doesn't feel crowded. It's all about balance. So even the materials. So we went with a fabric upholstered material on the sofa. So then we went with a leather on the chairs. And the chairs have a black frame, and then our coffee table has a stainless frame. On the back side of the sofa, we have a console table with two ottomans that can be moved around. So if we're playing cards at the coffee table, we can bring those around. It's super functional.
Yeah, I think it's just a brilliant design, what you did, flipping the wall. Really nice. Tell me a little bit more about just the beautiful shelf and the artwork and the lighting. And tell me about that. That's just great.
This was kind of a perfect space for me to condense any styling pieces that I really wanted to show. So a lot of it I picked up at antique stores or during our travels by putting in the floating cabinet and then in like a high gloss white. That's what makes the space feel more minimal and more curated. So it ends up being like a really big visual interest in the space. A lot of people stop and look at it, or they'll come back and say, I didn't know this was here before. Every time I come, I see something new. It's so much storage in the cabinet too. Extra holiday things or, paper plate, like anything that doesn't fit in the kitchen, we have all that storage.
It's really beautiful as a complete composition. Any advice on that?
Yeah, so I like to mix it up by the type of pieces. So I have books, I have plants, I have prints, I have decorative objects, and I have vases, different types of objects. So that way it's not just like a bunch of vases or a bunch of books. That makes it feel a lot heavier. So by mixing up the items, that's really where I start. And then on top of that, mixing up the materials. So we have glass, we have ceramic, we have stone. So it's really about just kind of having fun and mixing it up and spacing.
Let's take a look at your dining room. So the dining was essentially adjacent to the kitchen. You've moved it to this other part of the home. Tell me a little bit about this space. Those chairs look so comfortable.
This space was intended to be like a home office or a den, but we decided to turn it into the formal dining. The space was a little bit awkward in shape. It's not really a square. It has a few angled walls. So the round table was the perfect fit. The white glass on the top is just very airy, and then the walnut on the bottom kind of draws your eye and grounds the room. The chairs are definitely a statement piece. They're super comfortable and a little bit more formal.
Beautiful lighting in here as well. That grabs you from outside the room, kind of draws you into the space. So tell me about your lighting in here.
First, we had to find a light that would work on a vaulted ceiling, but then we wanted something, again, to draw your attention that was a little bit more formal, but also fun. So we brought the brass in here. We didn't want too much brass in the main living room, but we thought it would be a nice focal point here in the dining room. And then it has, I think, 24 bulbs on it. So it gives off a ton of light.
And what did you do to the ceiling in there?
So we decided to accentuate the high ceilings and create some visual interest. So we wallpapered the ceiling. It's so fun to see people walk into the room, and as soon as they walk in, they look up and they are just like, what is that? That is so awesome. I never would have thought to do that. So it's amazing how this one space changed just by these like very simple additions.
You've got your little corner unit that you repurposed from the kitchen. That was super smart. You got a nice little cabinet there. It seems to work there perfectly. So tell me about that and what you did for the top.
With this awkward shaped room, we were trying to figure out what to do with that corner. And we were looking at different furniture pieces, like corner bars. It came to demoing the kitchen, and we were taking down the upper cabinets on the wall that we took down between the kitchen and living room. And we thought, wait, maybe we could reuse these for a bar. So we ended up taking like the corner cabinets and then the cabinet that was to the left of the sink. And so these were all upper cabinets before. So we had to have a toe kick base made for it. We ended up having new doors put on these just to give it a little bit of a different feel, and then brought in these brass and leather cabinet pulls. So it gives it a completely different feel than the rest of the cabinets. And then our last detail that we needed for it was the countertop. We had a local company called Compound Concrete. They do custom concrete and terrazzo fabrication. So they made this terrazzo top. So I picked the base, the exposed aggregate within it, and it gives it so much texture and personality to the room.
You have some nice artwork on the wall. Did you take those pics, or is that from a local artist?
No, those are literally from like my very first apartment. Bought them online, had them printed, put them in IKEA frames, and the budget gets down and you're like, I'm just gonna put these on this wall. So nothing special there, but obviously, bringing in the desert into the room.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love it. All right, so let's go into the primary bedroom. This is super cool. That material on the back of that wall, what is it? What did you do here, and how'd you come up with it?
I knew I wanted a feature wall in our bedroom. In Arizona, a lot of drywall texture is like they call it a skip trowel, but it's very busy wall texture. If we were going to put anything on that wall, whether it was like a trim wall or wallpaper, it was going to be difficult with the texture unless we had everything smoothed out. So I had my steel fabricator here. He was working on the kitchen shelves, and I brought him into the bedroom and I said, what if we make this whole wall steel? And he was like, wait, what? I'm like, what if we just put like steel panels on this wall? And he's like, I mean, that could be amazing. So, I mean, I love steel, and I'm actually seeing a lot of it in commercial spaces. You'll see it in coffee shops a lot. They'll cover entire walls of steel. And I mean, that's where I get a lot of inspiration is from commercial spaces and hotels and restaurants. So I might have been at a coffee shop and just was like, I love the look of raw steel. So basically it's separate panels of hot rolled steel with just like a very natural matte sealer on it. So it has a lot of the organic texture that you would see. It's not like powder coated or anything. Like it's just the raw looking material. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to see imperfections, but that's what I love about it. So he installed it in separate panels and then basically trimmed out the pieces in between. And then we chose like the locations of the rivets. And then he actually matched the baseboard at the bottom because we have a 5.5-inch baseboard throughout the whole home. He did a 5.5-inch steel baseboard along the bottom. So that way your eye just continues all the way around. And that's definitely the feature in the room.
That's just so cool. When you first see it, you're like, is that a material? What is it? What is that color? And it turns out that's just the natural steel. Tell me more about this space, because you complement this with some other awesome pieces in here that add a cozy factor to complement that steel.
Exactly. So an entire wall of hot rolled steel can seem like it would be very industrial, very cold, very, commercial, but that really inspired us for the bed. So we chose something like very soft, cozy, a little bit more feminine, still clean and modern, and makes it a lot warmer. And then with the nightstands, they're like a cerused black oak. So it doesn't compete with the wall. It almost blends in. And then one thing that really makes the space more elevated too are the wall sconces over the nightstands. One of my favorite design details. It just has the vertical detail on the glass, and then it has a black and a brass canopy. So that kind of ties in all the finishes that are throughout the home.
Now let's go into your guest bedroom, and you have your little ode to Frank Lloyd Wright in here.
When you think of the guest bedroom, you think that you want your guests to feel like they're in this new place. So they're in Arizona. I started working on a gallery wall, and it was really more eclectic, I guess you would say. A few of the pieces were Frank Lloyd Wright. And then it came to us that maybe we should just make the whole wall Frank Lloyd Wright inspired. And we happen to live a couple miles away from Taliesin West, and we love going there too. So basically, we chose a few different pieces, had everything custom framed, came up with this design, and we really spanned almost the full wall, like even behind the lights. In a small room, you can't really have huge nightstands. So by having the lights hanging from the ceiling, you have a lot more surface area on the side tables. And then we hung them pretty low as more of like a task light. And again, they're a little bit bigger in size too. So it became, a pretty good focal point in the room to what would have been a, small and ordinary space.
What a great spot. Well, congratulations on this. Awesome home. I wish you a lot of good luck in 2021. Hopefully it's a better year for everybody. And we'll be in touch, and thank you again.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Rick.
Okay, we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.